We are live. What's going on, Nikki?
Oh, not much. Just the craziness of life right now. It's all a lot.
Dude, we got all kind of you're like bouncing around on the stream for some reason. You get
Oh
that
no,
weird Rhode Island connection.
happening. I'm on my 5G. I have all G's.
I don't know. Maybe you got to log out and log back in.
Okay, I can do that. Hang on.
You go do that. I'm going to talk to Dave. Dave
All right.
Polina. What's going on?
What's happening, man?
The only Dave that matters to me right now.
Oh, you stop it.
The
Go
only
on.
one. You're the only one.
You're just too much.
I know. All right. Nikki's back.
Is this better?
I have no idea. We'll find out.
Okay, we'll find out. Yeah.
I think it is better
Well,
somehow.
Good.
I'm still getting you that green screen though, because your background's all screwy.
Really?
It is. You're like every time you move, I can like see the whispers of dirty laundry in the background.
Oh yeah. Well, it's always like that. It's only partially. It only partially masks what is truly happening back there. Which
You still got the delay problem on your side. What is going on in Rhode Island?
I don't know. Let me join from a different browser. Bye.
Yeah, get out of here. Go away. We don't like you anymore. Let's see who's in. Let's see who's coming into the. We're gonna have some questions. Some people coming into the stream, Dave. But we're gonna talk about Dave's tonight. But we'll talk about you. I'm also using my Yeti mug that you sent me.
Yeah.
Or had sent to me from Yeti. So thank you for that.
Oh, Yeti's a great supporter.
I don't think it was intended to be used for the nefarious purposes in which I'm using it tonight, for whatever that's worth.
You know what stays on this podcast or what's said on this podcast can stay. I don't know. We just want something like that.
Yeah, well, it works.
No, it's not coffee at 8 o'clock.
Only if it's it's made. It's probably made in the same region of the world. It's tequila.
What are you drinking? Is it straight up? You going to straight?
In this size, yes. I poured a full bottle of tequila into No, it's my favorite Friday night beverage, which is tequila and LaCroix, which only has a mild taste of lime. But
that is spoken like a true CrossFitter.
Dude, it's my recovery drink. I've had a long week of workouts and getting my ass kicked at the gym, and now I'm back.
I have a very dear friend who would every night after the gym, he'd have one straight tall shot of tequila so as to recover from whatever his intensive weightlifting was that day. And it worked for him. And I think he's actually a state record holder in Ohio.
Well, there you go. Hey, let's see if Nikki's figured out her dysfunction.
I haven't changed anything. This is how I always podcast.
No, you're totally dysfunctional still, unfortunately.
Still screwed up. I don't know what's going on. Maybe you need to join from your phone.
Okay, I can try that. Holy shit. Well,
maybe it's your headphones.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Pull those out and connect your audio somewhere different. It's got to be it. Man, what a shit show this has turned out to be. Just like that. Just like that. Well, I wouldn't say that tequila is my normal like recovery drink after a workout. It's just my normal drink. So it's
it's your everyday carry.
It's kettlebells and cocktails. I have to have a cocktail when I'm on kettlebells and cocktails. That's the way this works.
You're on brand.
Yeah, I am absolutely on brand. Well, once Nikki gets her dysfunction figured out, we're going to spend all kinds of time.
Better?
No.
You guys, technology does not meet in this show tonight.
Not happening.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Maybe try your phone. Maybe disconnect. Come back in. I don't know. Oh, well. There's no way an audio version of this is going up on the podcast stream because I am not editing all the shit in and out. Every time whenever you have to edit the podcast, it'll give you an individual file for every time she's logged in and out, and there's no way I'll get it lined up.
Oh God!
Like
how much time do you edit in post-production a podcast?
Yeah.
Like how time consuming is that? Pretty time consuming?
It's not that bad. Not as bad as you would think. It depends. When it's just a me and Nikki show and her audio isn't having problems, I can edit that thing in 5 minutes. Like it takes no time at all.
Right.
And because we do these live now like this, so we can take questions from people and do whatever, all the YouTube stuff automatically uploads. So I don't really have to do squat when it comes to that. So yeah, it's not bad. We run a real ragtag show, Dave.
Easy day.
That's how it works. So you've had a busy year, dude. So you're sponsoring the CrossFit Games this year. You're an official sponsor.
Boy, yeah, we're an official sponsor, an official global sponsor, which is it's as much work as it sounds like. And it's so far so good. You know, we're knee deep in games planning right now. We have a bunch of different activations planned. We're going to do some really cool and creative stuff. It's a lot of work.
There you go. Look, Niki's back, and she like turned the lights off, like that was making a problem. And now I can see the unmade bed. I love this. This is great. Unfiltered Niki.
Oh God!
Now it's even worse. Oh, go away, Niki. Go figure this out. Go get on your phone or something. What is going on with you tonight? I don't know what's going on with her. Official sponsor. That's very, very cool. I'll try to keep you out of trouble tonight by asking questions, but I do really, I was thinking today about, this whole Castro coming back to CrossFit, which as someone who's in business and runs a business and hires and fires and does like kind of all that stuff, like it's a very unique,
huge move.
Drama.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
I mean, it really is. It's a very unique drama, and it's nothing to do with Dave or anyone else. Just like when you see someone who's at like kind of a director level, which he was, have a very public exit of the company and then get brought back to the company, like that's really rare.
Right.
I was curious as your insight. I mean, you are a CEO, you run a company, founder of O2, and I'm sure you've hired plenty of people in your career. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Wait, this topic is on the Dave Castro.
And well, I mean, I'm not even necessarily specific to Dave, but just like it is about Dave. Like he left and came back, like the whole like drama of it. Like I've never seen anything like this in professional business. Have you ever seen anything like it?
I don't know if I've seen anything like it, but I actually think it's a pretty good sign. And I think that it demonstrates a lot of humility on the part of CrossFit. And my take is, on the whole, as a 10-year CrossFitter, humility is one thing that hasn't been super prevalent in that organization.
You think?
And I think that this is a very public demonstration of humility, and I think it could be really, really good. And let's see where Niki's at.
She's in like a different room of the house again.
Is it working?
Wait. Yes. Wow. What happened?
I don't know. I'm on my phone.
That's intense. That was a very public drama.
I know it was. Here's what I'm going to do. Hold on. Wait, because Niki's landscape, we're going to give her the.
There you go. Nice.
Look at this.
Hey. I'll tell you what, you guys are lucky that I'm preparing for an open house. Otherwise, I would never show you what my actual room looks like. But we happen to not be totally covered in baby laundry right now, so that's okay.
It's all good. Just do me one favor and turn your microphone up on the back just a little. Just hit the game.
I'm not using my microphone. I'm on my phone.
Oh,
it's just still in front of me.
It's a fake phone. a fake mic. I love it.
It's just literally in front of me for no reason.
All right. Well, we'll get started. So Dave and I were just talking about the kind of the public drama that's going on. And I had asked Dave if he had ever seen anything like this in professional business. And Dave was talking about humility that came from it. So continue to elaborate, Dave.
Yeah, I think that, the firing of Dave Castro was a very public, very divisive move. And, I don't have nearly enough insight into the why behind that or whether it was good or bad. All I can say is that it very publicly divided a lot of people. And I think to see CrossFit bringing him back is a good thing because it's a demonstration of humility. I think that CrossFit has been lacking in that very important value for a long time. And now with Dave coming back in also in a very public way, it's a good sign because I think that the organization as a whole and the brand could benefit from a little bit more of that value.
What would cause a board, which is who would have had to make this decision, you would imagine? Again, I'm speculating, and I don't mean any of this I'm not trying to create any drama with this conversation. I'm just really curious, like from a perspective, like what would make a board want to bring someone back that had publicly exited? Like what are some reasons?
Well, I think there very clearly must have been a pretty large void left in Dave's wake, and not in a good way. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I think that the board or the management or probably some combination, realized that probably wasn't the best move, and we could benefit more from bringing him back than heels in just to save face. And go ahead.
Well, when you say void, though, do you mean a financial void or do you mean like a cultural void?
I don't know. Could be both. I know a lot of longtime affiliate owners were really upset by that move, and I can imagine some of them may have left because of it. So that could be a financial void. Culturally, I know a lot of longtime CrossFit team members were very upset by that, and that could have left a cultural void. So it's probably both. But I think it was big enough to justify the conversation, and I credit whoever made the decision or whoever the decision makers are for making one. I don't know if it's the right or wrong one. We'll find out. But it was one rooted in humility, and I think that's really good.
It was so interesting to me. We had started hearing rumors. Niki, I don't know how long ago you started hearing them, but I started hearing rumors like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I know Savan's podcast talked about it in great detail, and I had been hearing rumors around that time from some affiliate owners and the people I'm in cahoots with, and I didn't believe it, to be honest. Like there was, the business part of me, like I don't hire a lot of people back. I don't know how you handle your business, Dave, but it's been my experience. Like typically when someone exits,
that's it,
good or bad, they don't usually stick when they come back. Now I know Dave is a very unique situation, and so it's a different thing, but usually they don't come back. And so like when I was hearing the rumors, I'm like, this isn't going to happen. Like the drama behind how he left was so public and so kind of ugly. That it couldn't possibly happen. So we haven't talked about it on the show really. We might have like insinuated it once that we were hearing stuff, but certainly has never been a topic. Mm-hmm. And then when it actually happened, I'm like, oh shit, here it is.
Yeah.
It's really, really a unique thing and very different. And for the record, I'll go on record saying I think it's a great thing for whatever that's worth. But
I would imagine that's my personal opinion is this is probably a really good thing. And I think that humility, hopefully it cuts both ways, because, I think that what CrossFit could benefit from most is, coming together. That cultural void that was left by Dave and others, that needs to be filled. And, I don't know Dave personally, but I know a lot of people who are very close to Dave, and I love those people, and they think super highly of him. And, I think that if he can come back into that organization, perhaps with a little bit more humility himself and look to bring more people together versus, sort of the polarizing role that he's played, at least publicly in the past. I think that could be a great thing for that organization. And that could be a great thing for all of us in that community.
It's funny. Someone in the chat, Lance, who's a local Clevelander, by the way, said Dave isn't known for his humility, and I think that online persona would reflect that for sure. But I don't know Dave at all. I'll go total record for that. I met him one time at CrossFit headquarters. There was a workout, and I was a part of it. He led the workout, and he was a terrific coach.
Well, I believe that for sure.
And I'm not sure humility is the right term, but he did everything you would ever wanted a coach to do, literally staying there until the last person finished, which was probably me. And like really kind of walked everybody through everything you'd want, like, really top notch and really, I hate to say surprisingly, but surprisingly fit. Like dude was really fit. He blew my ass out on a trail run. He crushed me, absolutely crushed me. So I don't know if he has to be more or less humble coming back, but I do think there's a perceived persona.
Yeah.
maybe that I don't know if he has. I don't personally think he has to address it. I think CrossFit has to address that, not him. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Nikki kind of like rolled her eyes at me or like tilted her head at me. You know
No,
what I mean
I'm agreeing. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great now. Good job.
Yeah.
Nice job, Nikki.
Okay, hang on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I can only hear myself in my own headphones.
Oh my God, she's such a mess tonight. Such a mess tonight. You think this is this got to be?
You're the one drinking the tequila, but it's going straight to her electronic devices.
Well, I guess my point to that is when I say CrossFit has to address it, I think I mean she's just like, you're blowing us up, Nikki. What are you doing? Oh Jesus, I'm turning you down just a little.
So embarrassing.
It's all good. Well, no, I was just saying that when I say that CrossFit has to address it, I personally believe CrossFit has an image problem and like a real struggle with how they communicate with people. And this is a perfect example of it. Like we started hearing rumors about Dave 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I know for fact, because I've heard from people that know for fact that they've known he was coming back and they let somebody else make the announcement. Morning Chalk Up broke this news. Like I was sitting there reading that going, this is such bullshit. And I love the guys at Morning Chalk Up and we know a bunch of those people. So I'm not slamming, like they're just doing their job. But how does CrossFit not release how do you let somebody else tell your own narrative? I would never let somebody else tell my own story ever.
I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hear you.
I don't know. I feel like CrossFit uses a morning chalk up as a tool because they know that we as a community pay attention. And so that doesn't bother me necessarily that they I don't know if they themselves fed MCU that news or whatever, however they found out about it. I don't mind that news coming from them as long as it was like an appropriate message and the company was good with releasing that message at the time. But in general, sorry, I was keeping quiet because I didn't know if you could hear me or not. I tend to agree with both of you guys. I'm feeling really good about this move. I mean, I was sad when Dave was gone for all of the best reasons. Number one, he's so incredibly dedicated to this sport and he's done so many good things for the community. And not having him as a figurehead, it just didn't feel right. And I understand the companies go in different directions and I don't understand what's happening on the inside of the organization, but it just felt like a bummer. But also for the reason of I don't know if there's anyone better who better knows what we do, can better understand and represent affiliates and the methodology behind the sport. Agree or disagree with what he does for the sport of CrossFit on the competitive side. The man lives and breathes this methodology. Totally. So having him back in that respect for the affiliates, I think is only good news. Now, I personally will miss the villain of CrossFit kind of. I'll miss the open announcements, the throwing the watch away, the dramatic pauses. I don't know what kind of a role he's going to have and if anything like that will play into the future. But there was a part of that I also really liked. I loved the character that he played. I love that we had that, but either way,
I don't know if CrossFit needs a villain right now. CrossFit could use a hero.
Yeah, they're doing just fine on their own. They don't need help. Which is my point. I don't have a problem with them saying, hey, we're going to use Morning Chalk Up for some stuff. Yeah. But I guess my point is don't let somebody else control your narrative. Sure. Because here's what the perception is. So Morning Chalk Up, controls that story and releases it. And now the people that are really passionate about CrossFit are going, why aren't we hearing from CrossFit? Even if CrossFit gave that information to Morning Chalk Up, it's not perceived that way.
Right.
It just isn't they're just not perceived as if this is a release from CrossFit. It's just, oh, Morning Chalk Up got this story. And I guess we'll find out more later. Why isn't CrossFit talking to us? And I just think they have to learn to own their own narrative. I was thinking about this today, actually, and you guys, because you're OGs, will probably remember this. You remember back in the early days of CrossFit when the CrossFit Journal was the only place you could go for CrossFit news. That was it, way before Morning Chalk Up. And whenever we do a workout, we'd all go in the notes
Yes.
of the workout, and we put our time in to see what everybody else was doing. And we're like, oh my God, people are doing 4-minute Fran times. That's ridiculous. Like we couldn't, in those days, we couldn't believe anybody could be that fast.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, why aren't they still doing that? Like, how does morning chalk up even exist when CrossFit could control the journal and all the amazing stuff coming out of affiliates and in CrossFit itself, and even, press releases? Like the journal should be its own thing, free to CrossFitters. And, they could be telling such a tremendous story to people where all of us are fanatics about this. What are you doing? Holy crap.
That was intense.
I don't know what that was. But anyway, my point is that
how does a $100 million or $1 billion company let this happen? How does that?
I just think it's just a missed opportunity. I was talking to somebody about this week, and you were on you and I were joking about marketing last night or night before last via text. And, this is, part of what when I think of CrossFit and how they can easily fix this problem is like, they just have to control their own narrative, and they have so many great stories that they're not putting front and center, and they're letting Morning Chalk Up and everybody else tell their story.
Yeah.
Like I saw a story tonight. It was actually on CrossFit.com about, this, it was an adaptive athlete, and we don't have to go into details about the athlete specifically, but I'm like, that's the stuff that they should be wallpapering the internet and YouTube with.
Right.
Wallpapering it.
Right.
Of the lives they're changing and the people they're saving, and people that are overcoming chronic disease and addiction and all the things that happen, and they're allowing somebody else to tell it. And I'm like, if they would take a year and just say, all right, this is going to be our mission of just telling all the amazing stories, I think all this drama we've been dealing with for the past kind of 6 to 8 months would wash away. People would forget it and we'd move on.
Feels like the past 4 years.
Well, it's been 2 years.
2 years,
to be honest, too. Yeah, for sure.
I think what you're describing is symptomatic of what's probably the broader issue, which is what hopefully Dave can help. And I've perceived, again, just as a community member, there's a lot of people doing many different things at CrossFit, and there's a lack of alignment. And I think that there's a lack of alignment because there hasn't been a ton of leadership in that organization that's been steady and solid, right? We've seen a lot of turnover in leadership over the past 2 years.
Right.
And on top of that, there's kind of two different camps. There's the Glassman camp and the post Glassman camp. And they're full of great people, but those folks are not united in a lot of ways, it seems. Yeah. And I think that somebody or some small group of people, and I think Dave can certainly be, one of them, it needs to bring those two camps together and to clearly, spell out, this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it. And you're either coming with us or not, and then once you got everybody on board and rowing in the same direction at the same time, man, there's just so much opportunity in storytelling and life changing within that organization and in CrossFit in general.
How long does it take to pick a CEO, or should it take? Do you have any insight?
It's a big decision.
It's a big job. Yeah.
For me, if I were hiring a CEO for O2, that would probably be a 6 to 12 month process. And today, when for key executives that I'm hiring, that's looking at 4 months at least, probably. And I think that CrossFit, recognizes that as an organization, they can't afford to get this one wrong. This has to be, the next CEO has to be the CEO. And that is a tough find, man, because you're looking for somebody who is, a phenomenal business leader who can report up to, private equity board of directors, who can, very clearly and sharply manage a robust P&L, while at the same time, you're looking at somebody who can also bring people together and be like the external face of the brand and the internal person that everybody follows and can rebuild the culture. And that's going to be really tough to find in one person, I think.
Well, particularly for an environment like CrossFit, where you have a community where the average member feels like an owner.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very tough thing. And I think, but I also think the average CrossFitters right now are not recognizing the impact on what's going on economically around the world, not just in the US, but around the world, and how that impacts a business like CrossFit. Like we've got, inflation is starting to rise, interest rates are going up.
Yep.
People are, I was just reading I'm in banking, obviously. So I was just reading today about how people are starting to get capped out on their credit cards. And so they're going into credit card debt. And, I think what everyone has to recognize is that CrossFit is disposable income for everyone. Totally. And when you have to start saving money, the first place you look is like, well, what's the most expensive disposable income I have? And CrossFit typically costs more than your cable bill.
Right.
And most people will cut that before they even cut their cable, but they'll cut cable too at some point if they're not going to make their mortgage. And so I guess the point is you need a CEO that's going to be able to come in, that's going to understand, well, how do I help the affiliates navigate this?
Totally.
And grow the business, and how do I pull more revenue out of it that, we haven't pulled out in the first 10 years, like without it pissing everybody off.
Totally. You're familiar with the term wartime CEO versus peacetime CEO, right? Yeah. You totally need a wartime CEO because, I believe the next few years are going to be pretty tough economically around the world, and especially in the United States. And you also, by the way, you need somebody from the community. So you can't just hire somebody who's great and somebody who can run a P&L and they're wartime CEO or COO and they're great with culture, but they've never stepped foot in a CrossFit gym.
Right.
Or they're just doing it because they have to do it, right? I think this person has to come from the community. So your hiring pool, I don't know how many CrossFitters there are. Do you know how many CrossFitters there are?
I've heard they don't know how many CrossFitters there are. They have no idea. There's, wildly varying numbers. I've heard everything from as low as a couple of million to as high as 7 or 8 million.
Let's say it's 7 or 8 million. I mean, that's a lot. That's a much smaller pool than Gen Pop, you know? So this is going to be fun. I think this will be a 6-month search probably, but time's not on our side either, which is why I think it's timely and a smart move to bring Dave back, because he has been a steady leadership figure inside CrossFit HQ and, within the community for a long time. And so even though he's not CEO, he can certainly help supplement, the interim CEO and fill that leadership void.
Well, I don't know the dynamics of the board. I mean, this is part of the problem is I don't know how quickly they're going to want to return on their investment, but I'm of the opinion, if I were running the company, and I say, which would never happen, but if I were running this company, I'd be telling the board right now, I need a 3 to 5 year investment. And 3 to 5 years from now, it's going to feel like you're printing money. Yeah. But right now you got to spend some money.
Oh, they need to be playing the long game for sure. For sure. And I think that based on my very limited understanding of that board, there's recognition of that principle. This is not a 3 to 5 year thing. This is more of a 7 to 10 year thing. However you define it, I think it would be foolish to try and do anything short term, because these are long-term problems and long-term opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, when they took it over, what they weren't counting on was, the pandemic, or even the perception of the pandemic holding on for a couple of years. Now you have war in Europe. You have inflation. Yep. Gas prices are out of control. Like it's just like the world's kind of on fire financially.
Yep.
And they clearly weren't counting on that. And then, they probably were also not counting on the many missteps that have been made between here and there. And this, this whole Dave thing is a real enigma to me, or just really interesting to me, that it's created so much buzz within the community. Like one persona could do that. And kudos to Dave for having that persona, but it's just really interesting to me. For me, like I look at what they're doing, Dave, and it's, I think there's a lot of easy fixes they could have. I was watching semis. I keep wanting to call it regional. So I was watching semis last weekend, and they went to dead air. And I'm like, why are we at dead air right now?
Yeah.
Why? You should be blasting this with all of the amazing work you're doing because people are watching. Like, blast it. Like, and it's not even expensive to do that. You know how many affiliates will offer free time to show what they're doing?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
There's not a lack of content in the community. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and I want to, we all kind of want to blame HQ for that, but you can take that all the way back to Greg, who, again, I'm not complaining about Greg. Greg was great to me, and he's a complex dude, so that's a separate debate altogether. But when the media team was let go, a lot of this stuff is the result of it, and we're paying for it now.
Yeah, that's what happens.
It's really unfortunate. I just think, like, I watch these semis that are going on, like right now, Atlas Games is happening, and the one down in Brazil, and wherever the other one is, Strength and Depth. I'm a terrible CrossFitter. But those are 3 events where you've got all of Europe watching Strength and Depth. You've got all of Central and South America watching the one down there, and you've got North America watching Atlas Games to see if Vellner's going to win this one or not, which he will. And you should be wall-to-wall coverage of what are you doing in those local communities. Imagine, like, let's just stick to this kind of the South American one for a minute. If you're doing wall-to-wall coverage of what you can do in South America and Central America around CrossFit, how many new CrossFitters could you draw in, or at a minimum, just supporting the local affiliates, and it would not cost that much to do so. Maybe I'm naive, but I don't imagine it would comparatively.
My perception is that there are a whole lot of really, really good, talented people still in that organization, but there's just not a ton of direction. And when there's not a ton of direction, shit like this falls by the wayside.
Right.
There's just a ton of missed opportunities, and I've perceived that, like a lot of gyms, CrossFit has been in survival mode for the past couple of years, which is totally understandable. That organization's seen a lot of hard shit and traumatic events just in the past 2 years, and probably in the preceding 10 years. So head above water, is still kind of where I think they're at. But man, once you get some leadership in there and some alignment, that organization and this community will again be unstoppable, I think.
Yeah, well, here's some comments coming in, and this one made me laugh a little. It's like CFHQ doesn't have a marketing or PR plan, and it does feel that way sometimes. Like they just don't, they haven't really thought it out completely. And I'm not even saying that as a complaint or a criticism. It's just like it's just a perception, of like.
And also, I'm going to go into conjecture mode here, but we all remember the time and it wasn't that long ago, where all you had to do to be a successful affiliate was open up your gym doors, and stick CrossFit on the doors, and you're good, right?
Yeah.
It was like 2012 to 2016 or 17 heyday. Well, if that was great, imagine how great it was to be printing money at CrossFit HQ, And I can certainly say, with other organizations, I don't know if CrossFit's one of them, but when you have that almost ease of running a successful business, you kind of forget how to run a successful business.
Well, it's just funny to me when CrossFit first started, and we mentioned the journal earlier and how the journal was such a big deal. Like, message boards were a big deal then.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were kind of cutting edge for the internet. And like, I don't know what happened. This has been in Greg's era, so we can all blame Greg for this, I guess, or his team. But then they just quit innovating around that piece. And Niki can speak to this now that she's back, but they did invest, like, to their credit, they invested in the media team and driving the games and that stuff then. And so we had, like,
for a time.
Yeah, for a time. Welcome back, Nikki. You sound good now.
Oh, you sound great.
Yay! Amazing. I just restarted everything. And of course, like the second I restarted my computer, it was like, oh, good. We've been wanting to do all these updates. And I was
Yeah,
like,
thanks. Yeah.
heaven help me. I had Matt restart the router at the same time. So,
Nice.
yes, for a time there was a great investment in media, and we're seeing it come back now, right? I think that I personally feel like HQ is much more aligned on the vision for media now and the understanding of how important it is,
Mhm.
and how it benefits everyone. Like, yes, the sport of CrossFit is different. The competitive side is different from what happens in the affiliates every day, but we're inspiring people on TV, on CBS. Back in the day, it was on ESPN. We're inspiring people to step into an affiliate for the first time, not because they want to look like Noah Olson, but because that is an amazing feat of humanity. Look what these people can do. And then I think John brought this up in our last podcast, is they're starting to capitalize on some of the in-between time, where sometimes they air commercials, sometimes they air little features, sometimes, I know I've spoken about this before. I um the best assignment I've ever had was in 2020, part 1 at the games, when we were in Aromas, and I was on the desk anchoring the pre-show, and it was all like features and interviews with people with inspiring stories and talking to affiliate owners, and it is, to this day, the best thing I've ever done in terms of CrossFit media. So I feel like there's more of that. I feel like storytelling is back. I feel like, their team is back for the right reasons,
Yeah.
not just to broadcast the sport of CrossFit, which I love the competitive side, but because they recognize what that does for the entire organization and for the entire goal of just making the world fitter.
Yeah,
And Dave, you know that. That's why you're involved. That's why your business is now involved. Yeah.
and we're, to be clear, a global sponsorship with CrossFit is not an inexpensive endeavor, and so in a lot of ways we are placing a bet on the future of CrossFit, and that's because of who is in that organization and what they're doing, and what the potential is, and I keep talking about perhaps a lack of alignment and division, but there very well may be more alignment than we think. And let's say snap your fingers tomorrow, the organization is totally aligned, great leadership in place. We're not going to see that manifest itself, as CrossFitters or even affiliate owners, probably for another year, right? It's going to take time for that to make its way into the market. So I think it's also important just to acknowledge that.
Here, I'm going to pull in some questions. Let's just hope, if Dave really isn't involved in the games, that Boz shows up in August with dreadlocks. I would
Can you
love
imagine?
That.
Oh my God, I would die.
First of all, they were cornrows, not dreadlocks. Let's be correct on what they were.
Do you know that year I don't even think I'd met Dave yet. I think it was like my second year. And I legitimately, like, from across the soccer stadium, saw him. And I was like, oh my God, Sean Paul is at the CrossFit Games. Because he had dreadlocks and he had those sunglasses on, and he was like far enough away where I couldn't really tell who it was. And I was like, oh shit, you guys. Oh my God, that's so cool. And then I was like, oh no, wait.
Human light. Yeah, that's probably that could be a podcast in and of itself. Was that?
Here's an interesting comment. Here's an interesting one. CrossFit is run as someone's hobby, not a business. I think that's thanks. So Jennifer, thanks for the comment. I think that's a really interesting perspective, though, of kind of what we're discussing here. Is like the perception of what CrossFit's putting out versus what they want to put out are two different things. And that's I don't. I often get accused of being someone who's like in the pocket of CrossFit, but my biggest complaint of them is they don't control their own media or their own.
I think that's a valid complaint, and I think that's a valid missed opportunity for CrossFit. I think there was a time where CrossFit was run as a hobby, and it was probably in the printing media, where like, hey, we got people paying us $3,000 a year. This is great, and they're all like popping up, and they're all paying us more money for certifications, and all we have to do is like show up and give them L1.
Greg notoriously didn't give a shit about money. That's the one thing I actually love about the guys. He didn't care about money.
Yeah,
he just loved coaching and like teaching people. And he had his persona and his vision and pushed this thing out. And he'd let gyms open across the street from each other. He didn't give a shit. Like, he was just like, go do it. and it blew up on them. I think it caught them all by surprise. You know,
I think that's right. And so it's hard to have your shit together as a business when you don't need to, you know. And I have no insight into how things were run or not at CrossFit HQ when Greg was around, but I can imagine, and it was probably pretty great, you know, and probably very unstructured and probably pretty easy. Like, you know, if you've got people throwing money at you, it's going to be run as a fun hobby because you don't have to run it as a business. And now that organization has to run itself as a business. One, because it's got a board and it's got investors, et cetera, et cetera. But even if it didn't, those days of easy CrossFit printing money are over. That ship has sailed.
Did you ever go to HQ when Greg was there? Either of you guys ever like tour it? So I went twice. And you got to keep in mind, like I'm gonna give you some perspective. So in the 25 years or whatever I've been in corporate business, I've been to a lot of like corporate offices, quote unquote corporate offices. And and it's banking, so that's different. But you're talking towers, and there's thousands of people running around doing different jobs and lines of business. So I go to HQ, I get invited there by Greg to do this podcast thing, and me and my buddy are like walking around, and I go in like, this is a company with, at the time, it was probably 13,000, maybe 15,000 affiliates worldwide. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was certainly more than 10,000. And so I'm like, oh, we're going to HQ. This is gonna be crazy. Yeah. And we get there and it's in Santa Cruz or Scotts Valley. And I saw less than 50 employees total. It was, I want to say it was less than 25, if I'm being honest. Like empty offices everywhere, killer gym, by the way. And the food was great. And it was a beautiful office and beautiful neighborhood. But it was like, they're like, oh, there's where the games are run. There's like 2 guys in there, know, and my mind is just blown. I'm like, this entire organization is like put together on Band-Aids and paper clips. Like,
I find that with every major organization that I encounter is so interesting because in the marketing world, I've worked with some really big companies. And you think to yourself, like, wow, this large international company that I've known my whole life, that I know I own a lot of their product, whatever, they've got to have their shit together, right? And like the answer is literally always no. It's always like 10 people and they don't have their shit together and they don't have a marketing plan and they don't know what they're doing. And it's just wild to me, the misconception of this giant company. I mean, sometimes, and John, you work in banking, so sometimes it is, corporate is exactly what it sounds like it is, but I've never found it. And I've been working in marketing communications for 15 years at this point. So I don't know.
Everything looks better on Instagram.
Right? Ain't that the truth? That the truth?
We're going to take this question and roll it around to each of us. So question for each of you from Mary's Metal health, not mental, metal health. Sounds like rock and roll, man. I feel like I need to grab a guitar and hit some AC/DC. If you were given the CEO position, what would you fix first? Telling their own story or deepening the connection to affiliates? I don't know if that's an either or is there something else?
Can I just say, let me answer this first because I'm actually going to say that as far as telling their own story goes, I have maybe a little bit of a different perspective because story is like a very broad word, because I hear what you guys are saying in terms of controlling the narrative about like news or what's happening within the company. But I actually think that within the last 2-3 seasons, we have seen them get so much better about telling stories of CrossFit and of the impact that it's having all the way from the affiliate level up through the games. And you see that with the media people that they have brought in, some full-time, some like contracted, but like full-time contracted, like they basically are the people. And they're now starting to make the documentaries in-house again. If you see the kind of content that like Mariah Moore puts out, it's like, it's unbelievable. And Charlie and his team that are really doing their job telling the Miles to Madison stories. And like, there's a lot of excellent storytelling coming out of HQ that has been getting significantly better over the last 2 years. So I actually think that they're doing a better job in telling their story in that respect, in the creative and the narrative respect of it. What would be the first thing I would fix? You know what? I would, if I were there, I would make my mission kind of doing a better job explaining what's happening within CrossFit Health and making that really accessible, because I keep hearing, I'm interested, like I'm personally interested in wanting to be a part of John's in this beta test, and we've got doctors and nurses involved, and there's something happening. There's like something brewing where like there's maybe going to be a network of health providers that we can all get in touch with, or more doctors are going to get L1s. Like I don't have a fundamental great understanding of what exactly is coming, and I want to know. Like I would bring that more to the forefront, bring it to the people, do a better job explaining it so that folks like me aren't like, I want a CrossFit doctor. What's happening with that? And kind of like push that along.
Is that the Wild Health, John? Is that yeah, I'm doing it too. It's great.
What about you, Dave? Anything you would fix first?
The culture. Let's focus on the culture. I think there's a lot of internal division there, and you can't get shit done when everybody's not on the same page and supporting one another. So I'd focus first internally. For the same reasons, kind of like, on the airplane, right? They tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you, help your kid or whatever. Same deal. Like CrossFit has to focus on fixing its own problems before they can really help elsewhere.
You know what I'd do first? I'd make the board members do Fran. Swear to God. I'd bring them in, make them do a workout, like make sure they've all done CrossFit. I have a whole laundry list of things I would fix. I don't know what's necessarily first. Culture is a big part of it, but I think the first thing you have to do is outline that the affiliates are the North Star. And you have to be providing value to the affiliates. If you're not providing value to the affiliates, you're going to go out of business. It's literally that simple. The entire business model revolves around the affiliates. The games loses money. I'll repeat that. The games loses money. They're not making money on the games. So you have to keep the affiliates as your North Star. You have to. So you have to get Nicole Carroll, who is amazing, and Dave Castro out front.
Yeah.
Right out the gate. And make sure that all of that is front and center. Like, here's what we're doing for the affiliates. Here's what our give back is. It might involve reducing some fees or pricing, or just making sure they're understanding what they're getting or what they're paying for is worth their time.
Yeah.
I know I've said it a bunch here, but you have to control your own narrative. I'd put MCU out of business. I would be blasting YouTube and Instagram and Twitch and Twitter and any social media with every story I had, so much that MCU would just be carrying secondary stories. And I love Justin and his team at MCU, so that's not a complaint about them. It's just I would be putting so much stuff in the community, nobody else could keep up with it.
Yeah.
And I do that all through the CrossFit Journal. And then the last thing this isn't the last thing, but I'd make sure all of this game season that's going on, because the games has to continue, carries that message. It would deliver the message that Niki wants, which is CrossFit Health. It would carry the message that you want, Dave, which is culture. And it would carry the message that I want, which is, how do we get more people to come in to want to do this? How do we help people understand that you don't have to be 23 years old and the fittest man alive like Justin Medeiros? You can be a 52-year-old asshole like me with a slight drinking problem who likes to work out.
You did pretty good in the open, man. Don't sell yourself short.
Seriously.
I did all right. But my point is, it's like, it is for everyone. And that's the story you have to tell. CrossFit is for everyone. And if they can get someone that's that passionate about it, it's going to print money. But the board has to believe that to be true. If they don't believe it to be true, sell it.
I think that's right. Go ahead, Niki.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't disagree with the pump out as much content as you possibly can, but the journalist in me, which is where I started. That was my passion, my jam when I was a youngin'. The journalist in me likes having multiple sources multiple media sources.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of this like monopoly on CrossFit
Sure.
content.
Well, don't get me wrong. MCU will continue to exist. Just don't let them tell your story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't give them the story. Tell your own story. Let them go get their own stories. Like that's
Yeah, yeah,
the beauty of the free markets is if
Yeah.
I'm telling all of my own stories, you'll go find better stories. The
Yeah,
MCU will
totally.
actually get better. Right now, the big complaint on Morning Chalk Up, and if Justin's listening, I'm sure he knows this, is that people will continually shout that they're fake news or that CrossFit's just feeding them info. Well, the way to fix that is to quit having CrossFit feed them info and let them find their own stories like real journalists. And and because those guys are very talented, and I love those dudes, they will find great stories and they will release great info. And now you have multiple people telling great stories.
Yeah.
The free market always wins. Always.
Yeah,
I
I
wanna-
can't disagree with that.
I want to make a remark on something you said about the affiliates being front and center. For all the talk about a lack of alignment from earlier, I do feel like CrossFit, based on what I've seen and the private discussions that I've had and the more public stuff that CrossFit put out, I think that that's one thing that CrossFit is very aligned on. And that has, I don't know if I'd say that 2 or 3 years ago, but I'll say it now. CrossFit, that affiliates are the center of the universe. And that's right. That's the right thing to do. And that is the right thing to focus on. And, I think very, very highly of the team in CrossFit that's overseeing that. You got a lot of great people, working really, really hard on making sure that support is there. And so I think that there is alignment on that thing. And I also think that we're probably seeing a normal evolution of this organization. Have you ever read How the Mighty Fall? I mean, you guys, does that sound familiar at all? The book Good to Great, that was super popular like 10 or 20 years ago.
Does it come with crayons? I probably read it then.
It wasn't a coloring book, but I'll give you the basic premise. So Good to Great was a study of the best companies on earth and how they stay great over time. And then the author followed on with another book that didn't get nearly as much shine, but I think is twice as good, which is called How the Mighty Fall. And it effectively charts the trajectory of successful companies. And, they all hit this product market fit that's so great and they work really hard to achieve it. And then it goes gangbusters and they kind of forget about the stuff that made them great in the first place. They sort of lose their way. And some of them fail and more of them fail than not. But the ones that succeed have a moment of reckoning where, oh shit, I got to eat some humble pie here and recognize that I'm not all that and I got to put in the work and I'm probably not as perfect as I thought. Therefore, we got to go back to our roots and back to the basics. And I think that that's what we're seeing with CrossFit. And I think that the affiliate support is a manifestation of that. And I think that the humility that it takes to bring Dave back is a manifestation of that. So I'm really, really encouraged by, the general state of the union right now, even though it's kind of a headless organization or, we've got an interim CEO and there's a CEO search. I think that the right things are happening there.
Yeah.
I think that, a year from now or 2 years from now, it's going to be very, very public that the right things were happening when we were having this conversation today.
Wow. I gotta read that book because that's like what you see this trajectory so often. I'm like, that's what I don't want to happen to my company. That's what I don't want to be like that.
That book is why O2 has humility in its values, honesty, humility, and hustle. And that book is why it's like, oh shit, okay, I got to make sure we, don't do what all these other companies do and do that by making humility front and center.
So are you telling us tonight you're not creating an energy drink like everyone else, Dave?
I'm sorry. No, we're going to stick
How about an alcohol drink? Can you do one of those for me?
I can. In fact, I'll just pass this lemon lime O2 the Zoom here, and you spritz up your tequila, and then you got an O2 Rita. It's delicious.
Perfect.
Yeah.
O2 Rita.
I was excited to see that you guys were going to be a sponsor of the games this year.
Yeah, it's awesome, Dave.
The whole sponsorship, particularly around drinks, has been very it's also drama filled the last couple of years. With the whole monster thing coming in, everybody's like you know, it's not about health. And when I saw that you were doing it, I'm like, thank God. Like,
Yeah, and that's my bet on the people in that organization as well as the community that we have. And I think that, you know, generally who you're partnered with is kind of an illustration of who you are. And so I'm hopeful that CrossFit will continue to partner with more organizations like O2 and maybe less organizations like Monster, because I think that it's indicative of, you know, who you like to play with in the sandbox.
well, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
feel
it's
really
good
good
too
about
that,
that.
you know, you're part of our community. You know, like I look at some of these partnerships that have blown up in the last year or so. And I'm not sure they were all part of our community. And I like, my gut tells me Monster will blow up at some point. It may not, I could be wrong, but you know, they didn't start within the community. This is a very unique group of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think of companies like yours that are recognized as, and I doubt you guys call yourselves this, but I think a lot of people consider you a quote unquote CrossFit company. You know,
Yeah.
like I was at the gym tonight and they have a vending machine, and guess whose drinks are in the vending machine? You know,
Right.
I was kind of laughing to myself. I was texting you looking at the vending machine, and there's
Yeah.
3 O2 drinks right in the machine, you know?
Yep.
And I'm like, that's just cool. It's just
Yeah, and
very
I just to say, if y'all have not listened to the first episode that Dave was on with us, go back and listen to it, because when you talk about a brand like rooted in our community, the stories of Dave like aerating his own water and selling it out of the back of his trunk, like go back and
Yeah.
listen, because it's worth
Unfortunately, those are all true stories too.
it. I love it.
Yeah, it's just very, very cool. So
Yeah.
what do you think, Dave? Should I apply for the CEO job? You think they'd hire me?
Yes.
I think all my ideas are great.
Doesn't hurt, man. I mean, why not? You know, they have an affinity for bald guys in that organization.
Yeah.
I would lose my mind. The number of people who already think that you're in cahoots if you got that job. Could you imagine?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not qualified for the job, so that's the
Well.
first problem. But yeah, no, I'd work for CrossFit in a heartbeat, but they can't afford me. That's their real problem. I say that humbly.
They gotta get back to the printing money days.
Yeah, well, they'd have to. Banking pays really well, and I like banking.
it
I'm good
does.
at it,
Mhm.
you know. And this is just simply a hobby for me that I'm occasionally shitty at. So that works out. But
Yeah.
I will say I've been back in an affiliate. I didn't tell you that, Dave. I have started going back to an affiliate,
Oh, nice.
and
Is it
you know,
Jen?
it hasn't changed my perspective on CrossFit at all, but it certainly reminds me of all the things that are great about our community. Like I was there tonight, and there are a lot of people like kind of in and around my age.
Yeah.
And some younger, some older. And I felt like I did really well in the workout, but it wasn't about like how I was doing against them. It was just how I did against myself. And then when it was over, you get a fist bump everybody and high five them and tell them good job. And you see people overcoming their own demons. Like I have my own demons I'm working on, and I'm watching somebody else overcome theirs. And it's just like, it's just a really cool experience.
That's
you
the
know?
man. It doesn't matter where you're at on the leaderboard. It just matters that you tried as hard as you could, and you gave somebody a high five after. You know,
I wouldn't say I tried as hard as I could. I wouldn't go that far.
Well, 90% plus effort.
I will say, like, one of the beautiful parts about the affiliates, though, is it does make you work harder than you want to. And I had that moment tonight. We were doing it was a 2-part workout. We did back squats as a strength, and then the workout was double unders and overhead squats. It was 53 rounds, 50 double unders, 10 overhead squats at 95 pounds for the men, 65 for the women. And I got into the 3rd round. I did it in 3:31, by the way.
Wow, nice.
That was my time.
Speedy.
I'm good at double unders. But what you experience in affiliate that you can't get at home is that, or you can, but I don't get at home, which is that work to failure. And I was telling the coach, like, I got right to the end. Like I got in that last round, I started the 3rd round, and I go to do double unders and my arms don't work anymore. You know, and so I got to figure out how to do 50 quick double unders when my arms aren't working right. And then I got to do the overhead squats, and you get that burning feeling. You're like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to drop this barbell on the top of my head and kill myself, but I have to finish quickly.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
It was really, really, really interesting.
It's because you're going to work harder with people around you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
You work harder for your teammates, you know, if you're doing a team competition. At least I will.
Yeah.
Well,
I will
and you're
too.
competing against everyone in the room, even if they don't know you are,
Yeah.
like
Totally.
Subconsciously. Yeah.
not even subconsciously. I was next to this woman who was doing great. And I'm like, I'm not going to let her beat me. Like, like she doesn't know we're competing, but we're totally competing, like that's how it's going right now. And yeah, it's just, you're almost getting a mental workout while you're getting the physical workout. It's really, it's a very special place to be.
That I think is one of the most underrated, or at least under talked about things about CrossFit is the mental discipline that it builds.
Yeah.
That applies well beyond the four walls of the gym. That's why FIRE, the Forging Youth Resilience organization, they're doing that with kids who really need it and who can't get that from other sources, and that's going to change the trajectory of their lives because they're getting a little discipline.
Well, it's that the problem solving and the recognition of your problem solving. Yesterday's workout had rope climbs in it, and I notoriously hate rope climbs. I even told the coach, moving forward, I will be cherry picking these workouts. I just want to make sure you guys know I'm just making you feel good in this week while I'm getting the free week,
That's right.
And anyway, like the kind of the wind up to it was I would do a rope climb and then I'd make this long. You guys ever do the long loop? You do a big walk.
You're not beelining at all to your station.
You're not staying on the rope. You make a big circle coming back to the rope because you don't want to climb back up there. And I told the guy after, I'm like, this is the difference between training at home and in a gym. Like I'm learning that I'm not mentally focused. I need to stay on the rope and do another rep right then. I could do another rep. I don't want to do another rep.
Right. Yes, of course.
And that's the beauty of being in the group. And like you start to learn, if you are able to self-diagnose and learn those things. Like I walked away from it going, man, I gave up 2 to 3 minutes on rope climbs, just walking around doing nothing when I could have knocked that time off my workout and still completed.
And when everyone else was still doing it, that's the other thing. Like, oh man, she's doing it. She's doing another one right now. Oh man.
Yeah. It's just, it's a really special place. Like there's something about affiliates, man. They're like churches. It's just
Totally. There's no better place to find a community that similar people who give a shit. And that's a feeling.
We're getting close to time. I was looking to see if we had any other questions, but I don't see a lot of questions in here. Just people razzing me about my shitty times. So we also, one of the people in the chat is a member at one of this affiliate I'm going to has 2 affiliates. It's Crooked River CrossFit in Cleveland, by the way, for anyone that cares. And we did a finisher afterwards that was horrible. It was terrible.
Salt in the wound.
It's going to sound, it was. Like, I want you to keep in mind. So we'd done back squats and then we did the double unders and overhead squats. And that's a lot of work really quick. So your biceps are blown up and you got all the veins happening or whatever. And then they're like, all right, well, the finisher is not for time, but it's 30, 20, 10 of barbell curls and strict barbell presses.
Ooh. Amazing. Push pull.
Yeah, but you're supposed to be unbroken.
Oh,
30-30 and then take your break and then do 20-20 and take a break and then do 10-10. And so by the time I was done, I was like, I think my arms are going to explode. Like
aggressive. I would have used the trainer bar.
Yeah, I should have used the PVC pipe. That was mine. Yeah. I would have crushed it on PVC.
Well, it sounds like they're a great gym, and I know that gym. I'm almost positive I used to deliver that gym O2 out of the back of my car back in the day.
Well, they have a bunch of it. And it's a nice community, like most are. Just kicked my ass, to say the least.
It's a good sign.
So, Dave, thanks for joining us, DTC CEO.
Hey, yes, original.
I know. You should need to let me make you shirts that say DTCEO. It'd be great. It'd be totally truthful.
I thought there was another TDC out there. I don't know.
I know you have, but you actually own the initial. You own it all. You're actually a CEO. They're your initial. Trademark that shit, bro. Do it.
I'm on it. That and a booze filled O2. Those are my takeaways.
Amazing. I'm here for both of those.
You have the order reverse. Booze filled.
And then that leads. Okay, got it.
And then t-shirts.
Well, maybe you'll see something at the games.
Exactly. All right. Well, Niki, thanks for rebooting your computer.
Hey, I'm really sorry and also mildly embarrassed about my technical issues, but I'm really glad you guys carried the show for me for a while my computer decided to unfuck itself.
Well, Dave and I were just catching up, but we haven't had a chance to actually talk. We text every once in a while, but we don't get a
Oh,
chance
this
to
is
talk
great.
enough. So
Yeah, it's great to see you guys. And
Yeah,
shout
likewise.
out to the guests who's asking some great questions. And thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that.
hey, you will be at the games though, right, Dave? I know you're sponsoring, but you're going to actually be there, right?
Totally. Yeah, I'll be there the entire time. You'll
All
see
right.
me behind the booth, just like everybody else. Come
We're
get some
hanging
of
out.
too.
But we gotta make sure we're hanging out and grabbing burgers and cheese curds and all the fun stuff in Madison.
Yes, spotted cows. You guys, last year was tragic. I couldn't drink any spotted cows.
Oh, that's right. You were pregnant as fuck.
I was super pregnant.
You were so pregnant.
Yeah, let's not do that again.
Well, that's on you. Don't say us.
Tell Matt.
Yeah, Matt. No.
That's on you and Matt. Don't be looking at me. I got nothing to do with that shit.
Deal.
Well, the spotted cows are still everywhere in Madison.
Oh, thank God.
So.
Quick mom story, Niki. You'll love this. So we have this little place up the street that opened tonight called Cane's. It's a little chicken fingers place, and my daughter loves it, and she wanted to go. It was her first night, so we go, and there's this woman there with a baby, and this baby is so tiny. She's literally holding it on her shoulder with one arm and it's covered. Like, it's like, there's no way this baby is older than 2 weeks old. And she's walking around and they call her name for the food. And this place is packed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, shoulder to shoulder. And like, she got the baby with one hand covered up and like grabbing her bag of food with the other. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, somebody help this woman get her food out because it's making me nervous that she's carrying this tiny little 2-week-old baby.
Great.
Mama needed some chicken fingers.
I was like so impressed by how badass moms are, and at the same time horrified that she might drop this baby. Like, I just like,
no way that was her first kid.
Yeah.
No way. She was like, you watch the toddler, honey. I'll take the 2-week-old and I'll pick up chicken fingers.
Well, that's a sign of a seasoned veteran right there.
100%.
Funny enough, my oldest, Mira, she's like, that's like her 6th kid, right? Like, there's no way she's walking around with that baby if that's her first baby. I'm like, I know, but she looked like she was like 25. Like, she looked really young, and it was just freaking me out.
That's hilarious.
As a dad, I'm like, I wanted to help her, but I had chicken fingers to eat. So I'm like, you're on your own.
Yeah, of course. No, totally.
Yeah, it was good stuff. All right. Well, guys, thanks for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you guys.
Technical problems aside, still a fun conversation. So,
always.
Love you guys. For everyone listening, appreciate you guys joining. We'll chat with you guys soon.